Hey everybody, this is Lloyd with Just Got Played. Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be doing a game review. This time it's going to be for Horizons of Spirit Island. This is a standalone Spirit Island that is currently a Target exclusive. It is at a cheaper price point. It just came out recently, and I've heard a little bit of misconceptions. I've seen stuff online about people not knowing exactly what the game is and who it's intended for. So I wanted to get my review out there and go over everything about the game. The good, the bad, the ugly, and how they got it in at a cheaper price point, and what the actual gameplay is like. So stick around. Right now I'm going to head to the table and give you a brief overview of how the game is played. And then when I'm done with that, come back and we'll go over everything. So take it away. So this is Horizons of Spirit Island. It's currently set up for a 2-player game. We've got Fathomless Mud of the Swamp and Rising Heat of Stone and Sand. The Mud Cat here is the green, so this is his island. And the red is the kind of the fire dragon here, and this is his side of the island. So just going over some of the board spots, we have the fear pool. The fear pool is tied to fear cards, which we'll go over. We have the generated fear, so that's when throughout the game, fear is going to move from here to here. I'll go over that. Down here, we have the blight pool. Blight is bad. You start out the game with some blight on the board. Essentially, blight is the land getting destroyed, and if you ever run out of blights, you lose the game if you can't put blight out. Over here we have the invader track. So if you notice, there's explore, build, ravage, and discard. So the explorers have 3 phases to their turn of what they're going to do. And then up here in this corner we have the fear cards and the terror level. So at terror level 1, in order to win, you have to remove all invaders, all cities, which are the big ones, and all towns from the board. So essentially, invaders are going to spawn out of this deck in different areas. So if you notice, the sand card is showing, and they are currently in the sand spots. They spawn anywhere that is adjacent to cities, which are the big ones, towns, or coastal areas. So these 3 lands here are considered coastal, and on this side, these 3 areas are considered coastal. These areas here are not coastal, they are blocked off. They're basically cliffs, and they do not count. So whenever a card spawns, you look in the areas adjacent to this sand and see if there's anything that could possibly spawn a invader. And of course, what we see here is we have a town or a city. Now, you only spawn 1 invader per area that can do it. So this town spawned this invader, and this invader could be spawned either by this city or by the coast. And then the same thing goes for up there. These little guys are the Dahan, and they are the local people. They're native to the Spirit Island, and they will kind of help you out when you kind of coax them to do so. The board has little icons on it. That is where the setup places these things. These little discs here are your presents, and your starting setup will tell you where they need to be placed to begin. When you have 2 in a spot, those are considered a sacred site, and some powers are tied to the sacred site. They can only be at the sacred site or within a certain range of the sacred site. So the basic setup, basic round turn. So the basic round structure follows, essentially you start with the, so basic round structure is the spirits go, and then the invader goes, and then it's what's called a time passes, and that's kind of your cleanup phase. So first off, your spirits are going to get to do this top line, so they can pick one of these 3 powers, and this is considered growth. So whenever you grow, Depending on which spirit you have, they're going to have 3 different options, and it tells you what to do. And mainly what growth does is it gets presence from your board out onto the map. It draws you new cards, and it allows you to pick up cards from your discard pile. Those are like the 3 main actions that you're going to get. You can also generate energy as some of these, but the main thing is you're getting presence from your board onto the island. And the reason why that's important is because as you get presence out, you have these 2 tracks here. This top track is energy. So if we just push this up and take a look, as you get more and more presence, you're going to start to accrue more and more energy every turn. Now, the energy is not cumulative. You're only going to get the highest number shown, but the more of these presents you get out, the more power you're going to get. How does power help you? Well, that's so you can play cards. This bottom row here allows you to play more and more cards. So at first you can play 1, then for the next couple presents this you get out, you can play 2, then 3, then 4, and then 5. Also, you'll notice on some of these boards, you're going to get different elements. The elements tie to your actual cards. So let's go ahead and take a look at your player cards. So each spirit starts with 4 unique cards that are special to them. And throughout the game, you're going to get some more of these minor powers and major power cards. So these are going to give you a particular power. And at the top of the card, up here, they're going to tell you what the speed is. So whether you can go before the invaders or after the invaders, how far away you can target, and also what you can target. So some of them are going to have no range or a range of 2, or they're going to, you can only spawn, you can only target from your sacred site. So whenever they talk about range, the range is always from a spot where you have presence on the board. So I could range 2 from here. I could basically go 1, 2 out to here, or I could do range 2 from here and go 1, 2, 1, 2. And then every card's a little bit different. Down the side, you're going to have the different elements. And these elements, as soon as you pay for the card and play them, those elements are considered active, even if the power is a slow power versus a fast power. As soon as you pay for the card during your card play phase, you get access to those icons. Now, what do those icons do? Down here in the bottom of your player board, you have a bunch of innate powers, and generating those different elements are going to allow you to fire off these different powers. Now, these powers are cumulative. So if I can pay 2 fire and 2 the purple, I'm going to be able to do 2 damage to here, only to invaders. If I can pay 3 fire and 2 of this, but I also have enough to pay for this one, then I'm going to get to do 2 damage to those guys and then 2 damage anywhere I want. So these, the more you generate, the more powers you can actually fire off in a round. All right. So that's putting presence out on the board. As I said, you can also get cards. So whenever you pick up cards, you can draw minor power cards, and you're going to draw 4 and take a look at them, and you get to choose one of these to keep. The rest are going to get discarded. Now, these are just going to help you kind of build your hand up so you have more cards to play. You can also gain major powers. You gain major powers the same way. You draw 4, and you're going to keep 1. Major powers are a little bit stronger, or sometimes they're a lot stronger than the minor powers. And the catch to these cards is that whenever you draw one of these cards, you have to forget one of your other powers. So you can forget one of your starting cards, you can forget the minor power, or you can even forget the major power that you just picked. If you don't like any of them, you can just choose to take one and then immediately forget it. Right? So after you do your growth and you either put presents out, draw new cards, return cards to your hand from your discard pile, or gain energy, then you're going to move on to the presence phase, where you get to play cards and generate energy. So at this point, if you have this, uncovered down to the 2, you would gain 2 energy, and you use the energy to pay for the cards that are, the cost is up in the top left corner. Once you pay for the cards, your energy is gone, and you have access to the different icons, as I said. And then depending on which phase they go, they're either going to take place immediately, or they're going to happen after the invader phase. And once you've played your cards, you can talk amongst your other players to figure out which order you want to play them in. I don't have to take my turn and then you take your turn. I can play one of my powers. Then that one power could then benefit you, so play one of your powers. And then I could use one of my cards or one of my innate powers again, and vice versa, back and forth. Now, the main goal of this game is to get rid of invaders, cities, and towns and return the land back to normal. So whenever you destroy invaders, you just take them off the board and they are dead. However, whenever you deal damage to towns, these towns take 2 damage to kill. So if you deal it 1 damage, you flip it over and now it shows it's damaged. If you damage another, if you deal it a second damage, you take it off the board. And as you look over here, it says generated fear. Destroying a town generates 1 fear. So you would take this and move it over. 1 fear for destroying the town. If you destroy a city, cities take 3 damage. If you destroy one of those, you get to generate 2 fear. So what happens when you get all the fear over onto this side of the board? Well, what's going to happen is you're going to draw one of these fear cards. And now, right before the invader phase, you're going to flip that fear card over and see what happens. Now, all of those cards are going to benefit you. There is nothing bad in the deck. Fear helps the spirits and hurts the invaders. However, you don't know exactly what's going to happen. So it could mess up your plans, or it could really help you, or it could just fizzle if there's nothing there to happen. All right. So once all players have finished their actions, you're going to move on to the invader phase. So every turn, the card that's on the Explorer is going to move forward to the build. And you're going to flip another card over. And now you know they're going to explore there. Now, had this been like so, the 3 phases of the actual invader phase are Ravage, Build, and then Explore. So first off, any places that have, any of the sand spots that have invaders are going to receive damage. So they receive a damage depending on what it is. If it's a invader, it's going to deal 1 damage. So the damage will always hit the Dahan first. So if there's a Dahan here, the Dahan will take 1 damage. If there were 2 invaders there, that would outright kill the Dahan. And you would just take him off the board. The towns deal 2 damage and the cities deal 3 damage. Now this is where you get into Blight. If there are no Dahan there to take the damage and you weren't able to defend the land, when the land starts taking damage, after a certain amount of damage, it's going to start to generate Blight. Now if a land is already blighted, whenever it receives damage again, the Blight will start to spread. And that's one of the easiest ways to lose the game, is letting Blight get out of control to the point where you don't have any Blight tokens left. And you would need to draw one and you can't. Also, whenever Blights happens in a place with your presence, it'll remove your presence. So letting Blight spread is very bad. And once it starts happening, it is very difficult to control. So you definitely don't want that to happen. So after they ravage, the next thing they're going to do is they're going to build. So any place, if this little guy was here and this town was here, they're going to build. So if there is a invader present and there's no town or city, then they're going to build a town. Now, if there is a town present, instead of building a town, they would instead build a city. And then the next time, if they build there, instead of building a city, they would build a town. So they're always going to kind of go back and forth, building one and then the other. And then the next thing you're going to do as part of their phase is you're going to explore. And basically same thing as before. anywhere that's adjacent to one of these mountain spaces, if there's a way to spawn someone there, they will. So in this case, there is a town here, so that would spread, or it's coastal. And then the same thing over here. It's coastal, so it would get one. And that's how the game would continue to spread out over the rest of the map. All right. So the fear cards, whenever you generate fear and you have enough to pay for one of these cards, you're going to fire this fear card off before the invaders take their turn. Once you get 3 cards done, you're going to get to Terror level 2. And once Terror level 2 comes out, now you don't have to worry about these guys to win the game. You just have to get rid of all the cities and towns. And then after 3 more fear cards, the next thing that's going to come out is Terror level 3. Once you're at Terror level 3, all you have to do is remove the rest of the cities to win. And then if you happen to make it all the way through the fear deck, you automatically win. If you make it to the bottom of this deck, and there's nobody left to explore, then you lose. Time has run out. The invaders have overrun the island, and that is the end of the game. So there's a couple ways to win. Number 1 is to wipe everything off the map based on these different terror level conditions, or to just reach the end of the fear deck. And you can generate fear through destroying towns, cities, and a lot of cards will generate fear, and some of your powers might generate fear. You can lose the game by running out of blights. If you can't, if there's ever no blight there, you run out. And if you get through this entire deck, the game is going to end as well. Now, these cards also start to get harder. Oh, I have these flipped over. So I didn't set up this deck correctly. I just put the cards out. But essentially, you're going to have a certain amount of level 1, level 2, and level 3 cards. And the cards are going to get harder and harder and harder as they go. The level 2 cards are going to start putting out, if you play with the advanced rules, they're going to start putting out towns and stuff on their own. And then once you get into the level 3 cards, it's always going to affect 2 places at the same time. So you definitely want to try and win before you get into level 2 and 3 if possible. And that is the basics of Spirit Island and Horizons of Spirit Island. So let's head back up to the review and see what I thought about it all. Okay, so now that you have an idea of how the game plays, if you're new to Spirit Island, and this is your first foray into the lore and the history, hopefully that gave you a little bit of an idea of what to expect with gameplay. And if you are a diehard fan, you've been around since the beginning, and you were kind of on the fence and worried about what this game is and what it isn't, hopefully that gameplay overview kind of shows you that it's pretty much the same game. And, you know, kind of gets rid of some of those fears of maybe they made a dumbed down version of Spirit Island. So let's just get that out of the way right up front. This is not a dumbed down version of Spirit Island. This is Spirit Island in all intents and purposes. So why is this game only at Target, and how did they make this what is a typically $60 to $70 game? How did they bring it in, you know, sub $30 and get it to store shelves? So as you saw in the overview, the main thing is they really brought the component quality down. And that's not a bad thing. Basically, the main game, Spirit Island, comes with little miniatures for all of the invaders. It comes with little miniature cities, little miniature towns. The Dahan have little huts that you move around. Everything is plastic and 3-dimensional. So the biggest cost cutting thing they did for this game is they got rid of all the plastic, and they made everything tokens. That's the biggest change that they made. And that is the biggest cost-cutting measure. As also, if you noticed, they have a single game board that only has 2 sides. It has a 2-player side and it has a 3-player side. So the main game, Spirit Island, comes with little island pieces, and you put them together to make the island that you want to play on, depending on how many people you're going to play with. And this one, it goes from 1 to 3 players, 3 max. If you want to play 1 player, you put it on the 2-player side, and you just kind of block off the other side of the island with some tokens or something so that you don't accidentally, put anything on that side of the island. So that was another big cost cutting measure, right? Is they got rid of the die cut boards and they just put one double-sided board. And kind of the last thing they did, right, is they reduced the player count. So it only goes up to 3 players max now. You can't go above that. So that means they need less components. They need less boards. So just less things overall to make the game function. But in all honesty, this game plays almost exactly like the original game. Granted, it doesn't play exactly the same because you have different spirits, and I'm not a diehard fan. I don't know all of the spirits and how complex and how different they are. I've played the game on my phone a bit, and I've played the actual physical copy once or twice, and I've now played this a couple times. So how the spirits differ, that's going to be, wildly different amongst all of the different versions of the game, right? You have different spirits. They all do different things. They have different strengths and weaknesses. They have different power cards that they come with, and they have different powers that they can perform throughout the game. So that does change up how it plays. But you're going to get that with any of the expansions anyway. Every time you grab a new character, it's going to play a little bit differently because you're going to have to approach the game in a different mindset based on how that particular spirit plays. So with that being said, let's get into the likes and the dislikes. So what do I like about this game? Number one, I really like the price point. I really like the price point. I don't need the 3D components. I don't need all the little plastic pieces. The tokens serve just fine. They do get a little bit clunky and cumbersome with so many on the board, but they made the 3 times ones, so you can put those out. But again, I think the components are fine, especially that it gets this game into the hands of a lot more people like me who weren't really willing to drop $70 on the main game for a couple of reasons. Number one, how often is it to get to the table? I could probably play this with my group. We have played it once or twice, the main game, and it's a hit or miss, which seems to be a kind of a running theme with Spirit Island, right? Some people think it's really too hard and crunchy for what it's doing, and other people really love that interaction. Of how players have to really work together, and I think that's kind of leads into my next like, and this goes through for Spirit Island in general. The co-opiness of this game, if that's even a word, is really high. A lot of co-op games, it's, hey, we're all on the same team. I'm going to take my turn, then you're going to take your turn, then you're going to take your turn. And we're not really gonna need to interact that much. Like, I'm gonna take a turn, then the game's gonna get a turn. Then it just goes around in cycles. And a lot of them you can't do a whole lot to really influence what's happening and combo off of each other. And in this game, the coordination needed to really make use of everyone's powers and everyone's cards. And how much you have to work together to overcome the game, to overcome the invaders, is the bar is really high. Like, you really have to be able to do it. And as much as a lot of people complain about quarterbacking and kind of the lead player that kind of makes decisions for everyone, as much as a lot of people complain about that in co-ops, it seems whenever games take the training wheels off and you can't have a quarterback, someone leading the charge and saying, hey, you should do this and you should do that. And if you come over here and do this, I think a lot of people that either complain that they don't like co-ops because of the quarterbacking, or really like co-ops and don't realize they like it because of the quarterbacking, are kind of in the camp that don't like Spirit Island, and they're not going to like this game because it's the same thing. it is very difficult for one player to quarterback and give direction on what to do. So what it involves is a lot of working together with, and you can only give kind of limited information. You can't say exactly what you're going to do, but you can say, hey, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to try and take out those guys. Do you think, can anybody come over here and kind of take care of the city for me? Or, stuff like that. And, you do the best you can, you communicate, but no one can say, hey, you come over here and take out this city. You come over here and take out these guys. I'm going to go over there and do this. You use your power here. If you play these two cards, I suppose someone could sit down and really do that. But that one person is just going to kind of come up with a ton of brain burn trying to plan out everyone else's move and see what everyone else has and, coordinate that all together. And I think if you don't like that style of co-op, you're not going to like Spirit Island. It is a difficult game. It is very punishing. And one of the big things that you have to take away from with Horizons and Spirit Island in general is that the first few rounds are going to be brutal. They're going to be hard. You're going to take a lot of losses in terms of cities popping up and towns popping up and invaders exploring everywhere. It takes a while to get your engine going before your spirit becomes powerful enough to really take everyone on. And Horizons does that just like Spirit Island does. So if you were not a fan of Spirit Island, you are not going to be a fan of this. They did nothing to change the gameplay. They did not make this some type of entry level family weight game, a la like the Horrifieds or the Alien game, which is back there, or something like Marvel United. It is not that weight of game. The rules are very simple. You do this, and this. Then the invaders do this, and this. Where this game comes down to complexity is trying to work together with your fellow spirits and trying to take control of your spirit to the max ability that you can and get the most out of each card play and each use of your powers, right? So comboing those together, figuring out when to use fast powers, when to set up for slow powers. That's where the complexity comes in. Decision making and strategery. You have to plan, and then something's going to happen and you have to react to it, and then you have to plan again. And the game is difficult. So what did they do to kind of mitigate how difficult this game is? So first off, they gave you this quick start guide. And what the quick start guide does is it walks you through setup by giving you specific spirits to use. All right. It actually stacks the deck in a very specific way for the first game, so you know exactly what's coming. And then it walks you through an entire first round in detail, and it basically sets up a 3-player game with 3 spirits, and then it walks through everything that they're going to do. It tells you which power to do when you gain energy. It tells you, which cards to play and why you're playing them. So here it goes through and it says, hey, do this, 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 and it tells you why. Then the invader phase comes out and it tells you exactly what they're going to do and why it's going to happen. So you have an understanding of how the invaders work. And then it walks you through everything. And then it basically says, hey, now that you played an entire first round and we've held your hand and given you reasons why this happens and explained and given examples of, well, this happens because this happens and this happens because this happens. This gives you, I think, a really good guide to get the game going and have an understanding of the principles of the game and how the powers and stuff are going to work. That's what I ran into the first time I played with our group. Is we didn't really know what to do, and we struggled, number one, with how the invader phase works and the fast and the slow time, or the fast and the slow plays. And this does a really good job of walking you through why the cards are being played. And it gives you the rationale of, well, I played this card now to take care of this, and I'm not going to worry about this over here. I'm going to play this other card because I know this is going to happen after the invader phase. I know that the slow phase is going to kick in, and this card is going to benefit me on this particular space. So that's one thing they did to make it entry level, is they gave you a round one walkthrough for the entire game. For 3 characters, the invaders, the fast and the slow phase, they gave you a complete walkthrough. The other thing they did, and I don't have the main book to compare against from the main game, but what they did is they gave you this streamlining section. It says streamlining gameplay, and this goes through all of the like little tiny things that you might miss when you're playing the game for the first few times. So it says, hey, keep an eye on this, keep an eye on this. It gives you, don't do this until you do this. It walks you through like some of the most overlooked and common mistakes and things that you might get confused about. Again, this makes it a little bit more entry level because it tells you to watch out for all this stuff. And then down here at the bottom, it goes over, making the game harder or easier. And what happens if you miss something? It really holds your hand to kind of make it easier to get up and get going for the first time. And then the other thing it also does is on this side, on this page here, it gives you a basic strategy, right? So it gives you a basic strategy for fighting the invaders, where I should put my presence and my sacred sites, where should I move the Dahan, and some miscellaneous tips. So it gives you some strategy, again, on what to do. So that is something, again, we struggled with the first couple times we played. What to do and why are we doing that? So I think that's where Greater Than Games came to the compromise with Target when Target approached them and said, hey, we want you to make this game. We want it to be to go on store shelves. It's too expensive. It's too heavy. Bring the complexity down, bring the price down. And Greater Than said, well, listen, we'll bring the price down. We can do that. We have some tricks up our sleeve to bring the price down, and we're not going to mess with the complexity. We're not going to make this, my little scythe. We're not going to, take the gameplay down to a different level. And the reason why is because the characters that are in here, the spirits that are in here, can go into any of the other Spirit Island expansions or games, and vice versa. You can bring the other spirits into this one and mix and match these guys together. And it works. So I can go out and I can buy the Jagged Earth expansion and use those spirits with this base game. And it's all going to function together. So I think that was a really good thing. It's another thing I like about it because I do like the game. I just wasn't sure if I wanted to spend $70 to figure out if I really like the game enough to play it. For $30, I can play this a bunch of times, play all the different spirits, see if I like it enough to invest in more. Because I've always wanted to get into Spirit Island, but the price point is kind of like, well, do I want to spend that much? And the answer was always no. There's always something else that I could spend my money on that would I felt safer getting. Dislikes. The game is a little long. It can be. There is a lot of, you can run into a lot of the analysis paralysis where you end up with just a board full of things, a handful of cards, and trying to decide where to focus and what to do. But that is the core of the game. You're presented with tons of things that you can't take care of all at once. You have 50 things and you can only take care of 5 of them. So you have to figure out which are the best 5 so that on your next turn, you don't have 150 things. Instead, you only have, 50 things again. Until you can get powerful enough to bring it down. So the game does run a little bit long. It can run easily into the 2-hour range to play a single game. And with more players, it can run even longer because then you have to start coordinating between each other. So it is a bit of a longer game. I don't mind the complexity or the weight. I have no issue with it. The component quality is fine, right? Like the tokens are fine. The board is fine. If you compare that to the main game, then yes, it is a bit of a downgrade to not have the nice little plastic components. The tokens do kind of take up a little bit more room, just because the explorers are tiny little skinny little miniatures that are tiny. They're like 5 millimeters or something, 10 millimeters. They're tiny. And you can pile a bunch of them on the board, and they're easy to do. The tokens, they're all the same size. They're little square or rectangular tokens. Once you start piling them up, it's hard to. They do take up a lot of room. The board was not made specifically to have tokens. It was designed. The size of the design was made with those 3D components in mind, because everything goes vertical and they don't need to go horizontal. Unfortunately, with tokens, because they didn't do standees, they did tokens. Tokens go horizontal, so they take up more real estate on the board. So that means the board is going to be more cluttered. It's going to be a little bit harder to upkeep. But what they did do is they came up with, the 3x token. So you have one token that's the same size, but instead of it being 1, it represents 3. So they do have that. That's really my only other really complaint with it. I think the rule book is pretty good. It goes over everything, right? I like the inclusion of those tips and tricks. So there's not a lot to dislike in this game if you like Spirit Island. If you don't like Spirit Island, there is a lot that you are going to find that is exactly the same in this game, because this is, in all intents and purposes, this is Spirit Island. It is just a cheaper component. And I don't want to say the components are cheap. It's a cheaper version, cheaper alternative to the main Spirit Island. It comes with less stuff. It handles less players. It doesn't have as much in the box, but it also uses cardboard components. So if you don't like Spirit Island, or you're still on the fence, I think this is a good entry-level price point to give it a shot. And if you don't like it, you can probably move this along fairly quickly, because it is a little bit a little bit difficult to get to right now. I know the pre-orders sold out really fast on Target.com. I had to go to 2 different stores to get one. My store didn't get any in at all, so I had to drive to another store. And the quantities were very limited. Even when I looked in the app and it showed all around, there was only a couple stores that had them, and a couple stores only had, like, the store I got it from only had 4. Every other store was at like 2 or 1. So they did not get a lot of these. So I imagine they'll do another reprint, but I think this is a good one to buy and try out, because it's literally half the price of the other one, and you're going to get the same exact experience. Again, the only thing that's different are those 3D miniatures, those components being replaced with tokens. So yeah, if you're a diehard fan, I say buy it. You're going to get 5 new spirits that you can use. They're going to plug right into the other game. It's basically like a mini expansion. Granted, it's probably a little bit expensive for what you're getting for if you're just buying it for an expansion purposes. I don't know how big Jagged Earth is, but I think that introduces some new gameplay mechanics. This does not. This is base Spirit Island with 5 spirits and cardboard components. So, but if you're a completionist, definitely pick it up. It's got, 5 new spirits, and overall, I think this is a great investment if you want to try out Spirit Island. And I would love for other games that are in that expensive, price point to do cheaper alternatives, retail versions of the game that are like this, and put them out onto Target or Walmart or these mass market stores, so that people can kind of get an idea of what this is. The other thing is that if people like this, they're going to go to, their friendly local game store, and they're going to be like, hey, I want an expansion, or I want the main game so that I get the cool 3D components. So it's a win-win, right? Like, this is possibly going to grab more people and bring them into the fold for Spirit Island, into the hobby in general, because it's on Target shelves. And then hopefully that's going to lead to, other sales for Greater Than Games, for the expansions, and for the base game, just to get the higher quality components once you realize you like this game. I don't think $30 is bad for as an expansion, just because the gameplay you're going to get out of those, and the mix and match of having these 5 spirits with other ones can probably add a lot. That's probably a lot of value. But yeah, that's it. Recommendation is, I think you should get this game. At the very least, give it a shot. If you don't like it, you can probably find someone that will want it, just because it is hard to get. So as always, thanks for watching. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, comment. Come check out our Discord link. We have we have links in our descriptions for all of our social media. Check us out everywhere. We're always posting different things in different places. And if you check out the Discord, we're constantly chatting in there. We have a pretty lively group, and we're starting to run contests every I think we're on our second contest now. So we are starting to get the ball rolling on contests, monthly or quarterly contests. So yeah, come check us out. And as always, thanks for watching.